Hello, my name is Ben Mosier, and I'm joined today by Vinay Débrou. Vinay is a strategy consultant with a background in data science and branding. His slide contribution to the Yak Collective Reboot deck was an interesting one about networks, and in particular, scale-free networks versus small-world networks. Vinay, thanks for joining me. Could you share a little bit about yourself and what got you into this topic?
Thanks for having me here first. And yeah, the idea of small world network for me has been a kind of an outcome of following the rabbit hole of my two interests in branding and data science, and how in branding I continued to follow the trail of group psychology to sociology, and how usually people make decisions, and from data science perspective try to put together a lot of data points about the behavior of people, either in advertising or you know in terms of building a bigger picture of a business or an organization or the behavior of a group. And more and more I followed both of these trails, it seemed that they had some convergence at some point in network science. And so I got really interested into digging in more into this emerging field of network science. And more I explored it, I found out a lot about how small world network structure is really interesting in terms of the implications it has for the behavior of the participants in there. So and more I'm still learning more about it every day, but I've seen applications of it in learning process, in the neuroscience research about brain cell networks, to technological networks, like the technological and informational networks like World Wide Web, and other supply chain networks like the logistics, which is quite relevant in terms of what's happening now with the impact of this pandemic and breaking down of the supply chain network, the global supply chain network, and how the structure of it implies its robustness or fragility just by the structure itself.
So
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about the scale-free network and what makes it so attractive to most organizations and most structures that we're seeing today.
yeah. So scale-free networks are about maximizing the efficiency part of it. So, for example, if we go in 20th century, large corporations, in terms of the likes of General Motors and Ford, their whole focus, the top priority was efficiency, and so the whole organization was organized to maximize efficiency at the cost of everything else. So clustering is a big property of scale-free networks, where because clustering in itself brings a lot of efficiency when people work together as a part of a single cluster. Either that cluster is solely combined by human connections, just a group of people, a department working things out together in a law firm, for example, or it could be on a factory line where on assembly line, a lot of workers working together in a single cluster joined by the machines. So the whole focus there was efficiency in how much output we can produce per unit of time. But a lot of that, what emerges through that structure is underestimating the other implications of that structure, and how these clusters can become echo chambers, for example, one of the downsides, solving similar problems or having going in different directions, and could be benefited by sharing more information between each other, but they don't share that much, and end up spending more resources or time, or sometimes even failing while when they could have succeeded.
Yeah, so contrast that with this other idea that you share, the small world network. What makes that attractive as an alternative, and why would you head in that direction instead?
The small world network to me is interesting in terms of seeing it as an outcome of the evolutionary process. And what confirms it is we see a lot of small world network structure in a lot of biological systems as well, like metabolic cells in our body, and the whole structure of that process of metabolism, that is an outcome of evolution which prioritizes survival above everything else. And that means even if we get to be inefficient at some subset of the whole process, that's is okay if that is resulting in extra robustness of the whole process itself. So and when we see in systems like that and other emerging systems like World Wide Web, for example, which are not planned and designed like a General Motors divisions and departments structure, but they emerge out of the best possible way to connect people together. So in terms of having enough efficiency to not be, you know, super inefficient just because they were super robust, but also not putting efficiency at the cost of anything else. So having enough redundancy in there, and that point has become really highlighted in the face of this pandemic, where uh, lot of structures and lot of chains networks are being tested for their fragility. So small world network is about optimizing efficiency and resiliency at the same time. So that means enough of clustering that gives you enough efficiency, but also enough of cross cluster linking, and that's what brings resilience. So if there are two different clusters working on same problem, and one has a solution before other, the first one can share quickly and the whole process goes faster. Or if the first one is not just sharing solutions, they can also share problems. So if the first one is being overwhelmed by a problem and not being able to take care of it on its own, either lacking in its scope of the problem it can handle or the understanding, then the other clusters can join in there and share their perspectives and their resources. And a lot of that is why is that important now than before, because of rising, we are seeing a lot more complex problems in front of us which are just not possibly solvable by structures like scale-free network structure of a General Motors Corporation, for example, where that was doable in an efficient manner in a single cluster, but uh, is not possible to solve these complex problems which are only which need you to tackle them from multiple different disciplines. And that means cross cluster collaboration, from so issues like climate change to maintaining a supply chain in the face of a pandemic, or things like when there are disasters and there are a lot more uncertainty like world war or a pandemic, and you have to figure out solutions to problems which are not limited to one singular domain or a single department. That's where small world network really shines in showing its robustness and efficiency.
Excellent. And as you're working with clients in your strategy consultancy, how do you teach them these concepts? How do you help them understand the costs and benefits of each kind of network and managing that transition? How do you help them through that journey?
The first thing I do when I work with clients, usually it's a mix of modeling, a bit of educating, then also doing some testing in terms of what they're trying. So the whole point of small world network is to not go on either of the extremes, not be super robust but so inefficient that you don't get anything done, or be super efficient but totally unprepared for unexpected changes to go through them and survive and come out better. So the point here is to usually when I work with clients from mid-sized firms or some startups, either they're going through some growth phase and they're coming through problems which they didn't face before. They might be very good at finding product market fit, but they're not probably not good at scaling. Or it could be the opposite. They could have scaled well before, but now they're losing out to the disruptors. So in either of them, it's a matter of finding out the gaps, identifying the gaps in their strategy or their process of innovation, or bringing out a new product, or even in the strategy part of branding, how they're putting that message out or how that message is evolving. So a lot of that is my approach to that usually goes through seeing modeling out the current behavior by gathering that information, and then spotting the holes in there. Where are the holes, and wherever there are holes, how we can connect, bring these links between different clusters of the department. So there could be a branding team working at one place and the product team working at a different place, and how much of them are they are exchanging with each other their ideas, and how much of them are sharing the load of the problem. The point here of building cross disciplinary task forces is to leverage or harvest economy of scope. There is a lot of talk about economy of scale, and the whole 20th century was about that economy of scale. Just build massive amount of assembly lines or massive corporations with loads and loads of machines and people, and use that as your leverage to differentiate yourself in your unit economics, or that's how you win in the market. And the new way, uh, after there's abundance in economy of scale, or most of that economy of scale has been harvested already, or at least the low hanging fruits. Now the low-hanging fruits lie in solving complex problems using economy of scope, and that only comes through broadening the scope by connecting different clusters, different disciplines, and then what emerges out of that collaboration is something that either of those clusters could not have done on themselves.
So this makes a lot of sense, and I love how you emphasized the connection building between teams and creating these cross-disciplinary task forces.
Right.
How can people reach out to you? How can people learn more about you?
So right now, I'm quite active on Twitter. So the best way to chat with me is to maybe send me a DM on Twitter. My username there is Vinay Débrou, Vinay Debrou, or I am currently also writing a weekly newsletter. Uh, and you can find that out. Either the link is in my Twitter bio, or you can just go to Debrew, Daybrew .substack.com, and you can find out more about what I do, and also join my newsletter, where I write about what I've been learning about this, as well as my life as an independent consultant.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It was good.